All right, folks. What we're hoping to have a quick look at today, right, because it's the Monday and it's the week, and there are people talking about it in all sorts of areas. Is you know what's going to happen next and what are the questions. So a lot of people have been talking about stress and anxiety and all that sort of stuff over the last while. I only have 5 slides or 6 slides here. In fact, I think it's 5. So this will be quick. But what I want to try to get across to you is this idea of anxiety or stress or pressure or whatever. Okay, what is it, and why should we not be afraid of it? So I have it called there the anxious mind, superhero or supervillain. I'm hoping you're going to make a decision about whether it's a superhero or a supervillain by the end of this. Okay, so that's really where we're coming at it. So the first thing to say to you is that human beings are actually designed to be anxious. All right, the first part of your brain, the moment you were conceived, that started to grow was called the amygdala. It's called the primitive part of your brain, and it is designed just to work on the basis of, am I in danger? Am I not in danger? Can I survive? Can I not survive? That's it. End of story. So if you're, you have a choice as to whether you eat breakfast or you become breakfast. All right. So that's really the way that thinks. So if you think about it, blinking, okay, if you throw your hand at your own face, you'll blink. It's automatic. You duck if something's coming at you, running away, hitting out at something or other, shouting, and then sometimes just freezing when you're so panicked. They're all safety mechanisms that your brain does automatically. And it's that part of your brain, the amygdala, that takes over. It takes over from your rational thinking, feeling self. It just says, and it does it automatically. So your brain is designed for survival. Anything that it thinks is a threat, and it's not rational. It doesn't sort of say, is it a threat? Is it kind of a threat? Is it 10% a threat? Is it not? It doesn't go through any of those questions. It doesn't think about it at all. It just goes, perceived threat, there is a threat. End of story, it's gone. So it goes straight into that mode. All right. And as a result of that, the brain then floods your body with adrenaline, with the activity or the power that it needs to race out of their way, to get involved in, to maybe, so that you can survive. But it floods your body with adrenaline, and that causes your heart rate to go up, your breathing to get faster, sweaty palms, sweaty face, feeling nauseous in your stomach, okay? All of those things that make you think that you're having a heart attack or that you might be having a stroke or that there's something seriously wrong with you, but they're not, okay? And the fact that it builds up in your body over a long period of time seems to make it more anxious, makes your body more anxious, okay? And as soon as your body starts to go that and you start to say, oh, yeah, there must be something wrong, I'm not feeling well, the primitive part of your brain comes back in and says, yeah, see, told you so, you are in trouble, here we know, and then it floods you with more adrenaline, okay? So it's the normal thing that is happening to you. Okay, and too much of anything is probably not good for you. Probably. I wait to see somebody tell me something that is too good for you. But too much adrenaline in your system is not. And over a long period of time, it's definitely not good for you. It makes you react, not think. Now, you mightn't even be conscious of this, but your body is reacting all the time. It becomes hyper vigilant for anything that's danger. So if you go into a place that you consider to be not safe or that you're not familiar with, you mightn't even be thinking about it, but your ears and your eyes and your senses are a little bit more alert. So there's a hypervigilance that's coming by your automatic brain looking and seeing. And you're on a bit of red alert, whether you like it or not. The amygdala sees danger all the time, everywhere, anything, okay? And it even kind of imagines that there's danger there as well. So when there's no evidence of it, it doesn't matter whether there's evidence or not. It kind of shoots first, asks questions later. So it's an automatic thing. It causes the brain not to be rational. So it's really, really hard to think and to think clearly and to think straight when you're being anxious, when you're being, stressed, or when you feel that you're under threat. And that's why it's helpful to have somebody else that can help with you, okay, who can be a little bit more level-headed. But also, the brain can't problem solve under these conditions. So somebody's under threat or somebody's under pressure or somebody's anxious, don't ask them to rationalize between X, Y, and Z. They can't. It goes out the window. Logical. But avoiding becomes the hallmark often of anxiety. So if some of you are having difficulty at the moment focusing, or some of you are having difficulty with kind of getting on and doing the work or the homework or even logging on to classes, It's classic symptom of avoiding because you're feeling anxious. But one of the really good things to do is, if you can stay at it, is to use the classes for the kind of let's say you're getting used to setting yourself into a routine and staying with it. It's a reassuring thing because it's something that you do every day or that you see all the time around you. So it becomes a safe place or a safe thing, even though it mightn't be the most nice thing that you like. What can you do to help? Okay, so what I'm trying to get across to you is that all these emotions and feelings that you're having are normal behavior for the brain, for the body, for the human being. Okay, but some of these things that you can do to minimize it and make it less difficult for yourself, okay, you have to practice a bit. Sometimes some of our students and breathing techniques. I think I remember before we broke up at Christmas time, there was a speaker in talking about breathing exercises and trying to get you to do them. And it was very hard to see whether they would work or not. You actually have to be practicing these things a lot before they start to work for you. So practice them not when you're anxious, but practice them now when you're not anxious. It's a little bit like doing fire drill or getting prepared for getting out of a house under fire circumstances. The more you practice, the better you'll get, the faster you'll find it, and the more automatic it becomes. So some of them are important. First, okay, understand that you are not different, that there's nothing medically or psychologically wrong with you. It's anxiety, it's stress, it's pressure, it's the situation that we're in at the present moment. And many people in the world are experiencing this. Now, if you do have a medical condition, or if you do have a physical condition and it is exacerbated and going on for a longer time, then you definitely need to go and seek medical help. Okay, but in general, for the majority of us, it's not. We're not different. There's nothing there. It happens to everyone. It's the situation that's wrong. Okay, a world pandemic, never happened before, or at least didn't really. Your amygdala is in, it's in protection mode, and it'll turn out to be your superhero. It's your superhero on speed dial, and the only problem is that you don't remember calling it, but it actually has been called in, and it's constantly on the lookout now for the danger. This part is most important. What you think affects how you feel, and how you feel influences what you do. And then the cycle continues on, because what you do affects what you think, which affects how you feel. So it's going around in a kind of a vicious cycle. So if you think you're under threat, okay, your body will flood itself. Okay, so your body will now feel that it is full of adrenaline, and therefore it'll feel that it's under threat. And then the activity, what do you do? What do you do? You don't do anything. You don't actually try to get rid of all of that pent up energy and all that adrenaline. What you have a tendency to do is think that, oh, there's something seriously wrong, which again is now your brain thinking that there's something wrong, you're under threat. So immediately your brain goes back into, and it floods you with more. So it's breaking the circle, breaking the cycle, that's hugely important. So when you get that flood of adrenaline, when you get that energy, what I'm suggesting here on the right hand side, get rid of the energy surge in your body regularly. That's during the day, all the time. Okay, jump up, jump around the place, shake your limbs around the place. Okay, run up and down the stairs if you've got a stairs, scream into a pillow, preferably maybe tell your family or the people who are in the area first that this is what you're going to be doing. But you need to jump up and down, get rid of that energy. It's a surge, okay? It's a power surge. So those of you who've got computers and you've got gamings and you have the power surge switch on your computer, you know that if there's an electrical short or circuit, that the power surge can actually blow everything. If that's there all the time, it's not good for you. Same thing goes for yourself. So you need to do something to get rid of that energy, and it's a physical thing that you've got to do. The second thing is to try to practice your breathing techniques. Now, I know everybody sort of says, oh, breathing techniques, do they work? They will work. They absolutely will work if you practice them beforehand and keep on at them then. Slowing down your breath, okay, will slow down your heart rate. That will allow an increase in the oxygen and the blood flow into your body, and that will then slow down the heating up, so you won't be sweating as much. It'll slow down the nausea and the nervousness that you're feeling in your tummy or in your back or wherever. So it has all of that. So by slowing down, often you hear of people who have fainted and they try to get them back up, or they're about to faint and they give them a brown paper bag and say, breathe, or breathe into that, blow into that and breathe out. It's actually the distraction of the paper bag, okay, that's working. It's the distraction, number one. And number two, to breathe and blow up the bag, and then to take your breath away, take your mouth away from it, causes you to actually slow down your breathing because you're concentrating on blowing up the bag and then letting the air come out and blowing it up again. So it's slowing it down. So it's all there for a reason. Okay. So if you can slow it down, it will get rid of the bad stuff. And the amygdala will slow down and calm itself down, and your rational reasoning brain, the cortex, will start to take over, and you can do things better. Long term, make a plan, okay, an action plan, and stick to a routine if you possibly can. That's why there's, you mightn't want to be in school, but it's really good to actually be in school. You need a plan for sleep, and we have circadian rhythms within our body, which mean basically that when it's dark, we should be asleep. When it's bright, we should be awake and active. Those of you who are awake at 2, 3, 4, and 5 o'clock in the morning and going to sleep at 5 or 6 in the morning and trying to get up then for a lecture or a class or whatever, that's not going to work in the long term. Okay. Personally, I think we were meant to hibernate during the winter, but that would mean we'd be in school all summer. So we'll try not to do that. But you need to get regular time. And if you can get sleep before midnight, that will be restful sleep. That's really good sleep for you. Okay. Exercise. You need to get 40 minutes a day. That could be walking up and down the stairs. If you don't have a garden that you can go out into, at least kind of open the window and kind of look out, or sit close to the window and get fresh air into you. You need a bit of fresh air. If you can get some sunlight or even just daylight, that will have a huge effect on helping you calm down as well. You need to connect with other people. And I think Ms. O'Leary will probably mention a little about this in a second, but connecting with other people will do two things, okay? It gives you a sense of that there's something real out there, somebody else that's real out there, because in this time where everything is virtual, it's difficult to do that. But also, you can be talking to somebody who's more rational than yourself. In other words, your amygdala is in overdrive. You need somebody to kind of talk sense to you, or to be a little bit calming, and that can help as well. Okay, and you need to create that routine and stick with it. So the school routine is good for lots of reasons from that point of view. Okay, don't automatically believe the first thought that comes into your head. Okay, when you're under stress, when you're under pressure, the first thought that you have is probably the wrong one. So thinking about, some of the younger students who come often to us and be sort of saying, well, they're all talking about me, or they're all looking at me. They were all looking at me as I walked from, the front door to the gym. In actual fact, if you stopped any of the kids that they're thinking about and asked them, did you see John or Mary passing by? They'll go, no, I didn't see them. So we have this thought in our head. If you send a message or a post up on whatever it is, Instagram or Snapchat or whatever, and the person you're sending it to or posting it for doesn't actually respond, you immediately start thinking, oh, did I do something? Are we in trouble? What that sort of stuff. Don't. The first thought is probably not the right one. Okay, so you need to be really careful about that. And then the second thing is distract yourself. Okay, and distracting can be lots of different things. Some people will do crosswords, some people can do jigsaw puzzles, some people can do a bit of art or craft work. Okay, all of that is good. But if you're really, really stuck, all right, and you're finding that you're not doing classwork, or you're not doing homework, or you're getting into trouble for that, how about just looking at classwork and homework as a distraction? Okay, that if I focus my attention for the next 20 minutes on these 8 maths problems, or if I try to do this engineering diagram or whatever, okay, that will act as a distraction from the thoughts that are going on in my head. And as a result, okay, I might be able to calm down a little bit, or I won't be as anxious. Don't overthink. Or ruminate is the term that's used there. Okay, don't overthink about things. If you're thinking about something too long, you have a tendency to go into all the catastrophic bad stuff. In the present circumstances, don't listen to the media. Don't go onto the social media either, or all the speculation, or all the people that are throwing in, their tuppence halfpenny worth in terms of, okay, what's going to happen next and how that's going. Look, take it one step at a time. Listen to the facts when they're coming to you, okay, and know that you will be able to deal with, and the teachers will help you to deal with, and the schools will help you to deal with, and your parents will help you to deal with, and the colleges will help you to deal with, and whatever will help you to deal with whatever is coming down the line. So don't anticipate, don't, create a story around something that's not there. Okay. If you do, it'll send your amygdala into turbo boost. Use visualizations to distract you. Okay, so think of your favorite place, or think of I don't know, a favorite book or a favorite picture or a favorite song or whatever. I have a teddy down here, favorite, whatever it is. Okay, you can hug it, you can, as long as it gives you a sense of safety and a sense of distraction and visualization. Call a friend, phone somebody. Okay, it's not Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. It's a call a friend just to have a chat and see if they can distract you as well. Okay, re-engage the sensible part of your brain. Okay, it's like your phone a good friend or a sensible friend. It's important, that part of your brain that thinks rationally. And if it's sort of saying, stop thinking like this, it's not real, then listen to that part of your brain. And then you got to be patient with yourself. It's really important. Okay, it's a tough time, particularly those of you who are on your own. Okay, you might have parents working from home, you might have brothers and sisters, or you might never even have brothers and sisters. It's a tough time. Okay, so you just have to be a little bit kind to yourself and a little bit patient with yourself. Create a coping plan. Okay, and try to stick with it. That coping plan involves the exercise, the sleep, the good food, okay, all of those things that we mentioned a moment ago, and the connection. It could be something like hot chocolate, okay, or making toast or something like that. That can be nice to yourself. Your brain is developing, and it develops until your mid-20s, okay? Unfortunately, the teenage brain, okay, hits a growth spurt, just at the wrong time. There's a growth spurt coming in from primary to secondary, and there's a follow-up growth spurt kind of around about 50 or to 60 or into your mid to late 20s, okay? And it's an actual physical as well as emotional as well as mental, brain growth that is actually happening at this stage, and changes a lot of things for you. Okay, so be careful. Alcohol, drugs, nicotine, all affect the developing brain in a bad way. So if you can, try to avoid them. There's no need for them at this stage. Okay, and certainly not too much of it would be a good idea. Okay, at the end of all that, for me, the anxious mind is actually a superhero. It's the thing that actually will save you. It will come to your rescue at times when you are in trouble. Okay, so where you read about people doing super heroic or superhuman things, okay, under pressure, that's your amygdala, that's your anxiety, that's it coming in and kicking in and helping in a way. It's just at the moment, it's at the wrong party. Okay, it's all dressed up with nowhere to go, and it's at the wrong party, and that's really important for you. Okay, the last part on that slide is just some of the sources that I used to get some of the information to put forward to you. I didn't want it to be too long, I didn't want it to be too involved, but I hope you've gotten something useful out of it. Okay, thank you very much. Ms. O'Leary, I'm going to pass over to you again.
Yeah, they're very useful. I use those myself, those resources, they're very good. So I'm just going to talk, I don't know if it's showing up now.
I need to stop sharing mine, don't I?
I think so. Let me see now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a bit about how you kind of stay centered or balanced academically, emotionally, and in terms of your motivation in this, what is a difficult time. As Sir said, anxiety is when you have an extraordinary reaction, you have an anxiety disorder or problem, when you have an extraordinary reaction to an ordinary thing. But these are extraordinary times. So a lot of your reactions are fully justified, because this is a very challenging time. So how do you manage it? And what do we look to, or what experiences in the past might help us understand it? So I don't know if you can see the slide, sir. Can you see the slide?
Yeah, I can see the slide, yep.
Now it's quite small, so I'm just going to zoom in a bit on this diagram. So this diagram is based on a previous academic disruption where there was no school when they had the earthquakes in Christchurch. And I picked this one because the OECD did a report on school disruptions. And that report, a lot of it was based on that experience in Christchurch after the earthquakes when schools were closed, and what was the impact and what is the best way of managing where there is disruption to learning. So after looking at studying it, it only showed tiny effects, like the length of the school year or the amount of time in school had only a very small effect on the students' outcomes. In 2011, the Christchurch earthquakes. and it did not undermine students' performance in the school exams at the end of the year. And what determined how much impact it had on the student was not the intensity of the learning that was going on when they came back to school, or while school was effectively closed when they were doing the distance learning or the little bit of online that they had at that stage in 2011. It wasn't the intensity or how hard the work was. It was how intensely they were engaging with school. That was more important in having a good outcome for the student than actually the level of difficulty of the material and the amount of material that they were covering. So you'll see there in green, the optimal situation is a balance between the two, but you'll see up here that where the student and the school tried to learn intensely or tried to put a lot of pressure and challenging stuff on themselves, the long-term learning loss was more, and the hysteresis, which is a fancy word for the progression, it had a worse long-term effect on the progression to third level and to employment than it would have if the engagement was better, but the intensity and the challenge was a little bit lowered. Okay, so the long-term impact of that disruption to learning was less, where they focused on engaging and staying linked in rather than over challenging themselves in an unreasonable way given the circumstances. So I think that's important to know, that the connection and the linking in is really, really, really important. Okay, and to not be too panicked or overwhelming yourself saying, well, I have to catch up on this and I have to do this, that and the other. Previous experience shows us that that's the wrong thing to do, is to overwhelm yourself is not helpful, and it doesn't help anyway. So in the long term, it's not going to have a positive effect, but staying engaged and linking in with school, with classmates is very helpful, even if you're finding you're not able for very seriously challenging work. Okay, stay linked in is the important message. Okay. So the next aspect of staying balanced will be staying motivationally balanced. Okay. So as you can see here with this diagram, I'm showing that if you match the challenges facing you, if the challenges facing you match the skills that you have for coping or academically, you're in flow, things are going well. You know, it's the optimum state when you're trying to do something. You're well able for what you do, you have the materials at hand for what you do, and everything is comfortable. But if you challenge yourself too much, you're going to end up being anxious. And if you have too high expectations of yourself, you take on too much, you're going to be anxious. Okay? But if you don't do enough, you're going to be bored, feel things are pointless, and be demotivated. So you have to try and stay in that middle ground, okay, into that flow state, stay in the middle ground. Because if you don't stay in the middle ground, you'll end up feeling, what's the point? Being bored if you're not challenging yourself enough. And if you're challenging yourself too much, you'll be full of anxiety and worry, okay? So what can you do to stay in the middle emotionally and motivationally and academically? What's going to help? And Sarah has mentioned a lot of these already. So to stay balanced emotionally in the flow, you need to balance your expectations of yourself and your expectations of others and the situation. Okay? So if your expectations of yourself are unreasonably high, like you're trying to get into a course that's too high a points, or you mightn't be ready for third level yet, and instead of doing a PLC, you're trying to make yourself be ready, or you know, you're having unreasonable expectations of the situation, so you're feeling frustration or annoyance, you feel helplessness, or you're blaming others, why don't they do this or why don't they do that, or seeking answers where there aren't any, or speculating. That's when you're having unreasonable expectations of others or the situation. And when you do that, you're knocking yourself out of emotional balance when you do those things. So how do you stay out of that space or that place? To stay in flow, to stay in the middle, and to stay balanced, I have an acronym for if you slow down. So like they've been saying in the school context, you slow down to catch up. The engagement and the linking in is the most important thing. You don't have to be supercharging yourself with learning. You know, slow down to catch up, slow down your breathing. So the S stands for stay in the now, okay? So what can I do now, today, this week? You know, you'll notice every week when we have class, we say jobs for the week. What have you to do this week? Have you to apply for accommodation? Have you to finish your CO? What have you to do now that you can start today and finish today and feel a sense of completion and use up your anxious energy? So in the now, stay in the now. The L stands for linking in, and linking in a positive way, in a constructive way, not linking in by, you know, sending a link to an article speculating on the Leaving Cert, you know, not that. How linking in, saying how are you, or linking in, you know, in a positive way. The other thing, then the O is own it. You know, how am I actually feeling? How do I feel? Listen to how you're feeling. Get in touch with how you feel and how others feel. Be open to hearing how others feel. So this is the situation. This is how it is for me. Actually name it. And the last thing then, the W, is watch your thoughts. As Sarah said, you know, your thoughts can you get into a vicious cycle of thoughts and feelings and then actions and in a negative way. So watch your thoughts and what kind of things you allow into your thoughts in terms of media, in terms of social media, and what you put out there as well, that it might impact on others' thoughts. So just think of those things slow, stay in the now, link in, own it, and watch your thoughts. Okay. Now, just in light of that, you know, staying away from the speculating, the feelings of helplessness that might make you put things in the long finger or tune out or say, what's the point, or become apathetic, to kind of stay away from that. You kind of look to the now, stay in the now. Okay, so what are the nows and the knowns about our situation in particular? Okay, so there will be progression to college, apprenticeships, work, etc. That's an absolute given. That will happen. There will be applications and preparation to be done today and this week, in the now. There are so many ways you can improve your situation and progress if you slow, if you stay in the now, if you link in, as we heard from the OECD there in relation to the Christchurch situation. If you're linking in, that will secure your progression to third level and to work. But the important piece is to link in, not to over-challenge yourself, but to link in. Own it. How am I feeling now? What is the actual situation now? And ground yourself if you can. You know, use up your energy going for a walk, but ground yourself in terms of sensory experiences and nice things. You know, be nice, be kind to yourself. Watch your thoughts. Okay, watch what you're consuming on social media. Watch what you're putting out there to others. Okay, watch your thoughts. This too will pass. But link in with us and your classrooms and school until it does. And this will help your hyperesthesis, that fancy word for progression that the OECD had in the Christchurch findings in those studies. Be kind and reasonable in regards to what you can expect of yourself and of the situation and others, so as to avoid anxiety, frustration, and demotivation. You know, stay away from speculation or trying to find answers where there's none. Okay. Stay in the now, link in, own it, and watch your thoughts. Okay, have you anything to add to that, sir?
No, that's very good, and it's very clear as well, folks. What I would like maybe is maybe the people who are listening, or the students, would you mind doing or giving us 3 pieces of information maybe now, just from what you've heard? Would you maybe give us, the first one would be how you're going to get rid of an energy surge. Okay, so what can you do, you know, that would get rid of some of the energy that's in your body, and do it 2 or 3 times a day, even when you're sitting down at the laptop or at the screen. The second thing is, how are you going to stay connected, okay, to each other and maybe to the school as well? Just give me one example of how that's going to happen. And then the third one, I think we have a tendency to, you know, to kind of think that there aren't good things going on in the world, or that there aren't good stuff going on at the moment, or things that we can look forward to. But what I would like you to do is to, you know, I think Mr. Creedon in his talk talked about gratitude and looking forward to something, or being grateful for something that you have. So maybe you would write down just one thing that you're grateful for having right now. And when times do get bad, start to think about the things that are good in your life, but also the things that you look forward to. So what do you think, Ms. O'Leary? Would it be worthwhile if they were to write down
just type them into the chat as you're speaking, because I think it will be, you know, that will be worth it, so they can think of one and then go on to next. So gratitude, what are you grateful for?
Yeah.
Isn't it? So What can you do to get rid of an energy surge? How are you going to stay connected? And gratitude, what are you grateful for?
Just one thing that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. If you'd like to send those in, that's as much as I want you to do today.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that if you watch your thoughts that and manage how you engage, that can be helpful. You know, just the last lockdown, there was loads of top 10 or what is my favorite top 10 things, and that leads your thoughts into a place of gratitude naturally, you know, and that can be very helpful. Like I would start to think, what's my favorite tree or what's my favorite painting? So it gets me in the line of thinking all the lovely things that I've experienced or that in my life by doing that. So that can be helpful as well. What can you do to get rid of an energy surge? If you can put in suggestions, because your ideas from your generation might be more effective than what I might suggest. Okay, brilliant. So everyone coming in here, get up and walk around. Keep in contact with your teachers and friends, and grateful for my buddies. Lovely. Exercise as well. Exercise, very beneficial. Go out, outside, fresh air.
Absolutely.
You're grounding yourself. Yeah, get a different experience. You might be hearing and seeing and smelling things differently, you know. Listen to music on a walk, lovely.
Very good. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, listen to music that matches your energy. Yeah, music, art to help focus. Yeah. Do something physical. Keep in contact with my friends and family and grateful for my family. Lovely.
And be grateful for yourselves too, folks, and to each other, because you're doing an amazing job. I mean, the first thing that we should be saying, I suppose, to you all is thank you very much, because you have been amazing. You have been wonderful. I know sometimes, you know, at the start of this, they were talking about young people who were, you know, getting bad press. The majority of the young people, you know that yourself, are fantastic, and you are those people.
Going for walking a dog or going for a walk, yeah. Lovely.
Absolutely. The number of pets that have come into the world this year particularly is just amazing. Looking after another life is always hugely helpful and hugely good, because it distracts you from yourself. The dog has to be walked, it has to be fed, and theoretically you have to clean up after it, or somebody does.
And try not to link in with a dog when you come in the door. He won't let you not link in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so will we go on to the next task? So the next task, I'm just going to scroll up to refresh your memories. So how are you going to stay connected? We've kind of got onto that now. So how are you going to stay connected? How are you going to stay connected to others?
Sometimes it's a case of actually, you know, knowing whether when you think that you have, you know, you've come across somebody that you think might not be doing so well, or somebody you hasn't been in touch with, or you haven't been in touch with for a while. I kind of promised myself that this week that I would try to phone at least one person that I hadn't talked to in a couple of weeks, you know, during the course of the weekend. So only managed to get through two or three of the 6 or 7 people that I had put down, but at least that way I can check in to see whether they're doing okay. And I think for 1 or 2 of them, that was a good thing to do.
Yeah, and the student here has put the same, call them or snap them. Yeah, it's a good idea, Snapchat.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're just checking in, see how they're doing. And if you're worried about somebody and you're not too sure how to manage it, you know, you can always come back to us with that. Is there a question?
Yeah,
is there something that we might be able to
hear? Yes, sometimes people prefer video or to see your face as well as hear your voice, or it depends on the person. Yeah, but yeah, sometimes it can be nice to see a person's face.
Well, I think that's hugely important. I think if you can, absolutely. It's a little bit artificial here that we don't actually have our cameras on either, that we can't.
Yeah.
But you know, and that's one of the big things that I miss about the interaction and even teaching class is not actually being able to see your faces, not actually being able to see how you're doing.
Give a wave.
Yeah, we can do that as long as the students don't feel that they have to. All right, so that's just a Let us know that we're still in the land of the living.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is me. I hope all of you are well, and this is,
Yeah.
it's important.
Yeah. And like, I don't meet that many people, where I live, obviously, because we're restricted. So you're the people that I meet every day. So when I feel in good form, I'm in good form because I'm meeting you guys. So thanks for that. That's both a gratitude and a linking in. So I feel much happier when school is on than when we were on holidays because I'm interacting with lots of different people and it's lovely. Will we go on to the gratitude now? So
yeah, I think so.
one thing you're grateful for? Oh, grateful for music. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
And we've done connection, gratitude. What's the last one? Do we have to do?
We were talking about things that you like to do, or things that, yeah, you were looking at that. I think it's more something similar to that, isn't it?
Yeah, gratitude.
But one of the other things, what can you do for your family? What can you do in your house? Is there something that you could do? Could you make somebody a cup of tea, or could you offer to wash the dishes or sweep the floor or something like that? It can be hard.
Now, yeah. I'm grateful. Another student said they're grateful for their health, and there's lots of things you can do now. Like, I went out shopping. I said, you know what I'm going to do now? Instead of reading the news, talking about this, that, and the other, about coronavirus, whatever, I'm just going to get myself some vitamin D, and I'll make sure I have nice fresh vegetables and nice colourful things on my plate and stuff like that, and spend a bit more time cooking and this time on the screen, or things like that. So there's always something you can do in the now, that will make your situation better and keep you in the center. I find that media especially pulls me out of that center into this space of speculating or into this other unhelpful space, and takes you out of the now. And I think that's not helpful.
And there are lots of what they call, doomsayers out there, people who like to talk about the bad things, or, speculate about how things are going wrong and so on and so forth. If you can keep away from the negative, Ms. O'Leary mentioned it already herself, if you can keep away from reading the negative, but also posting the negative, always try to be positive and surround yourself with positive people and positive things and positive thoughts. Okay, then you will give off positivity yourself. All right. The most important accessory that you can have is a smile, and I think a sense of humor and a feeling of positivity are hugely important to go along with those things too.
Yeah, and I would say perspective as well. Like, as somebody who I worked in the news, and we used to have an editorial policy that would decide what would be the top story, the second story, the third story, the fourth story, etc. in the news, on RTÉ Online. And what would happen when the Dáil was closed, or in the summer when a lot of things were closed, is that disasters and accidents and car accidents would end up being the top stories, instead of something political, or instead of business or other things like that. So the impact of that would be that by the time the summer was over and the Dáil opened again, people would be terrified that we had huge problems in our roads, because there was so many accidents or huge problems with fire safety and things, because there was so much stuff being reported in the news. But there was no more accidents or fires than there was in the rest of the year. It was making it into the news because things were closed. And there's quite a lot of that happening now with coronavirus, because what's actually happening is that there's nothing else to put in the news, and it's given us a skewed perception of the world and of what's happening around us. And unfortunately, when it comes to sales and when it comes to consumer economy, oftentimes a feeling of lack, or kind of that there's something that we're lacking, or distress or fear, can make people buy things. So sometimes they can amp that up, and social media can amp that up, and there'd be more of a demand for those kind of stories. So just get a bit of perspective on it.
Perfect example of that, Mr. O'Leary, was at the start of the first lockdown, everybody racing out to get toilet paper, but also the price of thermometers, went skyrocketing. So your average thermometer that you would have gotten for 9 or 10 euros, by the time that people had gone into full lockdown, it was coming up at 90 euros. So, that was being driven by this whole fear and bad news. But there is an awful lot of other things going on in the world right at the present moment, folks. okay, that have nothing whatsoever to do with coronavirus. So, try to stay positive and look at those issues as well. And for those of you who are home economics students or who are interested in your food, I think this is the International Year of Fruit and Veg, is it? So my understanding is that they're all trying to encourage us to eat between 6 and 10 pieces of between fruit and veg a day. Now, if you can manage to do that, you'll certainly be very healthy. You've gotten a lot of vitamin C and vitamin D.
Yes, and if you can, if you're buying a lot of fruit and veg, and even if they're not usable, you save seeds and stuff. Think about maybe even gardening or growing stuff. I mean, there's been a huge growth in positive things like that. Huge growth in positive things for the environment. So, like, there's an awful lot of positivity out there. Don't get your perspective swayed. Watch your thoughts. And don't watch what media you consume, because it's not necessarily a realistic perception of what's actually going on in the world.
I'm conscious of the time now, Ms. O'Leary, so I suppose just before we kind of finish up, I want to say thank you very much to yourself and to all the students, actually, and the ones who contributed particularly. I hope this does something for you and that you can come back and look at it and find it useful and helpful and maybe add bits to it and tell us what didn't work. Tell us the things that we need to change. That would be helpful. But also to remind you that things like, the PLC colleges are open. Kildalton is now open for applications. There are a number of apprenticeships that are open, and as far as I remember, the Army are recruiting regular soldiers at the present moment. So there are things that are happening that you can be applying for if you're interested in them. That's it from me, Ms. O'Leary.
Okay, and me too. I'm going to stop recording there and just